Okay, thank you all for joining today's session. We're going to start immediately. Are you all seeing my screen? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
We're seeing an infrared mirror.
Yes, it's supposed to be like that. Okay, we're going to be treating lesson 7 from week 3. Lesson 7 from week 3, and today's class will be treating branding basics and what makes a strong brand identity. I don't know if you've heard of the term branding before, so we're going to get into that and how it is important for your designs as a designer. So in the lesson outline, we're treating what is branding, some elements of brand identity, importance of consistency in branding, examples of strong brand identities, understanding brand values, tone and audience, and visual branding versus brand strategy. So that's what we'll be treating today. And our objective here is by the end of this lesson, you should be able to define branding and brand identity, to be able to identify the core elements of a brand, analyze strong and weak brand examples, apply principles of branding to your design, and prepare for branding focused projects like logo and kits. So, what is branding? What is branding? You must have heard of brands before. This is my brand, your brand, branding. But what is branding? Branding is simply the perception people have of your company. That means that how people actually see it, how people see your company. You know, like the image of what people have of your company in your mind, what your company represents in their minds. Let me take a simple example of maybe MTN Cameroon or Orange Cameroon. So, for example, let me just say a simple aspect such as their colors, like orange, they're always dressing orange. So, whenever they're organizing an event or they're going somewhere, even when you go to the office, right, you see orange all over. So, those are some things that help people to identify them, right? Even without clearly them stating that, okay, we are orange or we are MTN. So it also goes beyond that, even the way they carry out the activities, the the way they design their flyers. There's always some sort of consistency, if you've noticed. If you go on Orange social media page and you check their flyers, you see that there's a sort of consistency in the way they design those flyers. So in a way that even when you come across those flyers, you would know this is, if you've been interacting with the brand often, you know this is from Orange, right? So it goes beyond like logos, it includes the values, what the brand stands for, right? What the brand stands for, the personality. Personality can have to do with the way of talking, right? The way they pass out their message. Are they using like a friendly tone? Are they using a professional tone? So are they using these quarter slangs? So this has to do with personality, right? Visual identity. Visual identity has to do with the colors, for example. The colors that they use has to do with the visual identity. The image that they use has to do with the visual identity. The customer experience is also part of the branding. So if you ask maybe somebody about Orange in Cameroon, they might tell you what this people might say, might complain about the connection experience, might be bad. So, um, so now imagine that a new telecommunication comes in, right? And this telecommunication company settles in Cameroon and offers a better internet service than Orange. What will people do? They'll most likely switch from Orange to that company. Why? Because of what? They'll have a better customer experience. So that's why this matters. They switch from Orange to that company. Let's just call that company Leke Telecom, because the service there would be better. It might be something else. It might be maybe the customer service, right? Perhaps when you have an issue, you call Orange and maybe they don't attend to you. I'm not saying that maybe they don't attend to you, and another brand comes in now, and somebody tells you that I love this brand because whenever I call them for an issue, they always attend to me. What will you want to do? You want to switch to that brand because you're fed up with the other one's experience, the customer experience, the customer service experience. So all these little things has to do with branding, right? All those things contribute to how people perceive you as a company, perceive you as a company. So as a designer, when you are designing a logo or a flyer for a business, it should be oriented to their branding. Or if you are creating a branding from scratch for a company, you should think about all these little details. So branding answers the what do we stand for and how do we communicate it visually. You know what mentioned before that even colors evoke certain emotions, right? So for example, you have green or blue which involve growth. So you will see maybe it also involves green also involves nature and brown. So you see most brands which are into agriculture, their colors are something related to green and brown because they want to represent the natural tone, right? Green for vegetation, brown for the soil. So it's things like that. So in fintech, for example, you see companies usually use blue and purple in fintech because blue represents growth. Blue represents trust, approval. So so these are details which you keep in mind as a designer. So let's say somebody approaches you for an agricultural company, for a fintech company, for an edtech company, or even for a restaurant. Restaurant, you see colors like orange, red, light brown. Uh, these are colors which are bright, right? Which are lovely and inviting because he has to invite the audience, right, into wanting to eat. So that's why you choose maybe bright colors for such a thing and avoid maybe dull colors because those dull colors are not standard. You want the restaurant to stand out to its customers. So there are some things that you have to think about when you're designing, right? It's not just about going straight into Photoshop and putting some bunch of images together, putting some text and exporting and sending to the client, right? It's not about that. So you have to think about all these things when you're designing. So what are some elements of a strong brand identity? Elements, you have the logo. The logo, I think we all know what the logo is. You have the typography. We spoke of typography, right? It's the text, right? The type of font which you use. The color palette, which involves the colors. Is it red you're using? Is it orange? Are you combining both together using a gradient? Is it blue? Is it pink? The color palette. The color palette should match the color palette, the typography, and the imagery should match what the brand or the company wants to portray. So, for example, if you're designing maybe for a shop that sells baby products, right? You might want to use maybe some baby colors like pink or light blue, so some baby colors, right? And type of images which you use a lot of images of involving happy babies, babies wearing clothing, babies with toys, because the kind of people who are going to see those images are mothers. Are mothers. It's not the baby themselves, but they are the mothers who are going to see those images. So those images, an image of a baby will appeal to a nursing mother. You not just take for a shop for babies, but you're putting a young lady there. It doesn't really appeal to the intended user. So these are elements which you have to think about when your design should appeal to the intended audience, right? So whenever you're designing You have to ask yourself, who is this meant for? Who is design meant for? Who is supposed to see this design? You're not designing for everybody. You're designing with a particular audience in mind. And that audience determines what kind of typography you use, what type of color you use, what type of imagery you use, right? That will best represent the company and the service to the audience, to that audience. The tone of voice matters too. So we spoke about a baby shop, a shop that offers baby clothing, baby toys. You see, the tone of voice which you use, tone of voice which should be appealing not to babies, but to nursing mothers, because that is your target audience. The the brand story as well. Let me check this real quick. The brand story. Yes. The brand story is about also what you represent, right? The brand story is with what the brand represents. Who are they, right? What should you know about us? That's what the brand story represents. And consistency in the design. So it's not about designing for business, it's not about experimenting different types of design each time you're designing something, right? It's about finding something which matches the intended audience and sticking to that, right? There are variations, of course. It doesn't mean that you use the exact same design, but consistency means a particular way of doing things. That's what consistency entails. So you need to have a particular way of doing things. So, for example, the images has to be consistent, right? The type of images which you use. Today, you're designing for a baby shop. See, your images has to revolve around nursing mothers and babies. Nursing mothers and babies. That's what we call by design consistency. If you're not coming in with images of an old man, you're already out of the consistency. You're talking about something different. It doesn't match what the brand represents. Same thing with the colors. You have a particular color palette or color scheme which you have to be using. For example, your color scheme maybe your choosing color scheme maybe was let me say green and yellowish orange. And your first design has this color palette. The second one you added come with red. The other one you've added pink there. The next one was seeing blue. That's not consistent. So all these elements work together to create recognition and trust. So why is branding important? Why should you care about branding? It's because branding builds recognition and trust. I said, for the example of orange, whenever you see the orange color, you know, okay, this is orange.
It's like a screen.
What?
I can't see your screen, the presenting screen.
You guys are not seeing my screen. The screen is not being shared.
Me, I can see your screen.
Oh,
Buying them. Can you see my screen?
no, I can't see your screen.
Let me just stop the sharing and send it again. So far, are the concepts understood? Is it clear or do you have any questions so far? Do you have any questions anyway?
It's clear.
Yeah, screen.
You can. Okay, are you seeing my screen now? Are you seeing my screen now? Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so we can proceed. So where were we? Why is branding important, right? As I said before, for recognition and trust. So your logo, for example, sells for the logo of the business, right? Sells for recognition. So whenever somebody says that logo for your business or for whatever business you're designing for, people would know that this is this person. So whenever somebody will see this logo here, person will know this is Leke. Whenever somebody says the Facebook icon, you know, okay, this is Facebook, or the orange logo or the MTN logo, Google logo, you know, this is Google, without anybody having to tell you that this is Google, right? And this builds trust, right? So if somebody maybe has interacted with my brand, for example, has interacted with Leke, right, and has got a good experience with it, wherever he sees this logo, he's going to trust it, right? Because she has interacted with the brand and has got a positive review from it. So wherever he's going to see this logo, he's going to say, okay, this is definitely from Leke, so this can be trusted. So it might not just be the logo, it might also be something else. It might be the colors, right? Which he might see. And the colors might tell him that, okay, by seeing this color, it might tell him that this surely has to do with Leke, because I know this Leke is always represented by these colors. Okay, why is branding important? It creates emotional connection with the audience, right? So people will be connected with when people interact with the brand, right? With the brand, whether it's your brand or the brands you're designing for, and they feel as though the experience was good, or maybe their inquiries were solved, or maybe the product they were looking for they got it, or maybe it's the interaction, right, was good. They build a connection to that brand, and that connection to that brand or with the audience, that connection of the audience with the brand creates in terms of if you're maybe you're giving out the product or a service, it creates returning customers in the case of you're offering a product or a service. If somebody is emotionally connected to your brand, he's most likely to come back to it. If it's really for a product, to buy another product, or a service to buy another service, he's also most likely to recommend it to another person finding the service, right? Or if it's a brand, it has to do with information, right? If he comes to looking for information and the information which you give out helps him, mean that what the next time he's also looking for information, he's going to come back here because the last time he got what he needed. And the next time you're also going to recommend to another person looking for information. Maybe it was different from what he was looking for himself. So why? Because of the emotional connection which is being created. And for that emotional connection to be created, there must be a sort of branding, right, with the company of the company, which entails all those things we talk about, which entails the logo, the colors, the communication. All those things contribute to the perception of the brand. So when your brand is being perceived as maybe as helpful, as good, as professional, it creates an emotional connection with the audience. And this is most likely to push your brand even further. by either creating returning customers or by creating referrals. It sets Branding is important because it sets the business apart from its competitors, right? So if every single business had the same logo, had the same colors, had the same strategy of doing things, the way of doing things, same way of communicating, same way of doing their visuals. So what would set somebody apart from another? So what would make somebody choose company A from company B? Everything they were doing were the same. So it mean that what in a set of companies, let's say 5 companies doing the exact same way, one person is going to get lost inside. Because if I was already doing what I wanted, if I was already shopping in A, what would make me go to B or C to go and look for something when I know they are not going to offer me anything different from what A is already offering? Anything different from what A is already offering. So branding sets the business apart from its competitors. So how you position yourself, how you present yourself, how you communicate, how you strategize is in an attempt to set yourself apart from your competitors. So when your audience come into contact with your brand, they will feel like this person has something different to offer. It increases brand loyalty. Loyalty. So when people have recognize your brand, and they have become emotionally connected to it, they are most likely to stay loyal to it. Even if another new brand comes up, maybe even sometimes offering a better service, right? They are most likely to stay with you simply because they know you. As they see the devil you know is better than the angel that you don't. So combining elements create this loyalty. It supports in marketing and advertising efforts, right? So if you already have a scheme of how you do things, right, it makes it easier when you're doing your advertising. When it's time for advertising, right, if you already have a scheme, right, or a way of doing things, it makes it easier when it comes to doing your marketing, doing your advertising. Right? You don't have to create everything from scratch. Each time you're going to advertise, you don't have to recreate everything. You already have a way of doing things. You don't have to design a new logo. You have to start checking which colors am I going to use, which strategies am I going to use. Right? When everything is established like that, it makes it easier when you're going for marketing or advertising. So what are some visual branding components, right? You have the logo, which is the symbol of the brand. Right. The logo is the first thing that people would recognize about your brand is your logo. Right? Because the logo is you. You have the color. Color evokes emotion and sets the tone. Like I spoke of designing with purpose, right? Designing with purpose. So your color should match the purpose of the brand, right? Is it a restaurant? Is it a tech company? Is it a fintech? So in choosing your colors, it should evoke an emotion which relates to the emotion the brand wants to portray to its audience. The fonts as well are important. Fonts has to do with typography. It reflects the brand voice. There was one time when I was speaking about fonts when I showed you some different types of fonts which are used by different types of companies. We spoke of, like, for example, companies which are into luxury products usually use very thin fonts for their logos. For example, Dior, luxury brands, clothing brands usually use very thin fonts. Tech brands usually have thicker fonts, right, for their logos. Thicker fonts. Restaurants usually have more playful and fun fonts for their logos. So the choice of font also determines should also reflect what should reflect the branding, what the company stands for or what the company is. The imagery, right, supports the mood and the message. So let's just say you're designing for a company which deals with an agri brand like the one which we have here. for an agri brand which is about farming, right? It's about farming, and your imageries are about showing top models. The images are very good, right? High quality, but it doesn't represent what this brand is all about. This brand is all about agriculture. So showing like the earth, plants, farmers, uh, farming equipment should be part of your imagery. So your imagery should match the purpose, right, of the company. The layout also. The layout is simply how you put everything together. So layout reinforce brand structure and hierarchy. So layout is actually how you put everything together for it to look good, for it to look appealing to the end audience, right? The intended audience. So together they form the visual identity system. So this is a simple, right, visual identity system which was actually a demo project which I had done for Biocomplex. It was a demo project. So you can see the element to talk about speaker. You can see the logo at the top. You can at the bottom left you can see the colors with the color codes which were used across the branding. So meaning that what everything which is being done related to this company should follow this color palette. So when you're designing, whether it's for a company which doesn't, if a company doesn't have a branding, then you should design a color palette which you're going to be used for that, which you're going to be using for that company, for that design, or for that company subsequent designs, right? If it already has a color palette, then you should stick to that color palette. For example, so if I'm designing something for this, I can't come and be using red. Even if I'm using green, I have to use a specific green which was provided. So if let's just say I design this for the company, and now you are going to be continuing as the maybe in-house graphic designer of the company. I'm handing this document to you. So this document serves as a guideline to you as to what colors you're going to use, which you can see on the bottom left, what typography you're going to use on the bottom right, you see how these things are going to be printed for the different products. For example, you have a tote bag, you have a polo t-shirt, has your control it, and the logo itself with the icon. So this simple, yeah, somebody raised the hand. You have a question? Let me check the chat. Oh, you can't see the screen. Who else isn't seeing the screen? Who else isn't seeing my screen? Okay, let me stop the recording and restart it. The sharing. Share over again. So far, are we understanding concepts, or are there any questions so far? Are you seeing my screen now? You still, who else isn't seeing my screen? Everybody else is seeing. SP, are you seeing? Okay, that's nice. So everybody can see this. So far, any questions so far? Anything you want us to go over again? If everything is clear, you can send a reaction. Okay, so let's proceed. So brand voice and personality. This has to do with the tone and communication style of the company. Is it fun? Is it professional? Is it casual? It reflects the company's values, what the company stands for as a company. And this personality, right, of the company should align with the visual. So you as a designer, for example, if you're coming for a company, right? Let's say Apple. Apple has a sleek and innovative and minimalist tone. That's Apple's tone. So your designs should reflect this. See, Apple, everything Apple does is always in a minimalist way. So you can't come and be creating a flashy design for iPhone. Let's say iPhone hires you as your designer. iPhone hires you as a designer, and their tone is a minimalist tone, minimalist sleek. So simple but nice. That's what it means. Simple and nice. And you're coming in with some highly complex design. It might be beautiful, right? But it doesn't represent the brand's personality or the brand's voice. It's not just about making a very beautiful design. It's also about making a design which represents best the company, be it your own or the company which you are working for. Another example is Coca-Cola, which has a joyful and energetic and nostalgic personality. So you see, every visual which they produces that feeling. You see the image beside. So they look so happy drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola. They look so happy, energetic, young. Look at their tagline, taste the feeling. So everything about them represents that image. So as a brand designer, you should have an understanding of this personality of the business or the company, and your design should follow that, should represent that visually. Let's take a case study. Let's take a very popular brand that everybody should know, which is the Nike. The logo is a simple swoosh, as you can see down here. It's a logo. I think everybody knows this logo. The color palette, black, white, and bold red. As you can see here, the swoosh is in red, the text is in black, and the background is white. The tagline is "Just Do It." And what is their voice? They represent bold and empowering. So you can see even from the visual, right? From the visual represents that bold and empowering, just do it kind of feeling. In all their visuals, it represents that empowering kind of feeling. It's not just in the text which says just do it, even the kind of image which they use, right? They deal more with athletic and motivational visuals, right? Inspiring. And the impacts have universal connection, and this is what they use, right, to create an emotional connection with their audience and to have a universal connection. So they can always be represented in this bold and empowering way. And whenever you see this swoosh sign, you know, okay, this is Nike. Whenever you see this "Just Do It," you know, this is Nike. So branding versus logo design. So do not mistaken branding and logo design being the same thing. So for example, let's just say someone comes to you and says, "I want you to do the branding for my business." The person might not really understand what he's saying because he must have heard the term branding, but also know he might think branding is okay, I want you to design a logo. But actually it is different. The logo is the visual mark of the company, right? The visual mark of the company. Like you have Leke above here. This is the visual mark of the company. But branding has to do with a lot more. Logo design is actually just a part of branding, just a small section of branding. But branding has to do with the entire perception of the company. So branding has to do with the emotional connection between the company or the brand and its audience, the strategy which they use in communication, in marketing, in business, their uh, shapes identity, right? Branding shapes the company's identity. Then we talk about perception, right? How they are being perceived, and their ongoing process means how they go about things, how they do their things, right? For example, in their customer service, if you call a business, how does the customer service represent you? How they go about acquiring clients, how they go about their communication, how they go about like every single thing that represents them. So that's what branding is. And logo is just simply a subsection of that, right? The logo is the visual mark or the visual representation, right, of the company. So what they call the visual representation of the company. So for example, you have Facebook with the F, you have Google with the word written down, different colors, Google. It is part of the branding, it's like a subsection of the branding, the logo. It represents identity and it is used in design projects. So do not confuse branding for logo design. Branding is an entire package and logo design is simply a subsection in that package. So your logo is the doorway to the full brand. So it usually starts with the logo, right? So you can design a logo as a separate service, which is separate from the brand identity, which is a more complex and detailed service. So that's why you see people position themselves as branding experts. Branding experts means it's not just I'm not means the person is saying I'm not just going to design another logo for you to give to you to use or another flyer to you. I'm going to design the entire experience people have with your brand from start to finish. That's what branding professionals do, which is different from just a regular graphic designer which will design you a logo which you will use or a flyer or a poster. So let's have some discussion to see to test our understanding of what we've spoken so far. So the first question is what makes a brand stand out to you personally? So you're going to send your responses in the chat. What makes a brand stand out to you personally? What do you think makes a brand stand out? A brand provides good customer service. Yes. The way you communicate with your clients, with your audience matters a lot. So people would love you like customer service usually when people have like issues at to contact customer service. And if I have an issue and I contact the customer service and it's very poor, most likely I'll be looking at switching brands, switching service, going to a different provider. So the customer service is a very important part. Logo and branding. Branding is you're talking about branding is already the general thing, right? Branding involves everything. So when you say branding, you're not I'm asking you to be specific. Logo is specific. Logo, as I said, logo is a part of branding, section of branding. Branding is the entire thing, the entire experience, the entire perception of the brand, and it involves a lot of different things which are spoken of, like the logo, the communication, the strategy, the visuals, the colors, the text, all those fall into branding. But now, what aspect of the branding, right, makes the company stand out to you personally? So this call is going to end in 15 minutes because we're using the free plan Google Meet, and you have just a 1 hour window. So once it expires after 15 minutes, I'll create a new link and I will send the link to the group where you can just click and join in again. So we'll continue. The brand voice and the way of communication. And voice matters a lot, the way you communicate with your audience, right? As we said, if you're designing something or you're working as designing something, the intended user who it is designed for should be your focus in the way you communicate. So if you're designing, for example, for a baby shop, who's your intended user? In that case, intended user is intended audience, right? Should be nursing mothers, right? Nursing mothers, women who are pregnant, women who just gave birth, nursing mothers. So in your communication, you should use kind of words which should appeal to those mothers. If, for example, you're designing or a flyer, for example, for a course, let me say, for example, a graphic design course, if you think who are those who will be likely interested in a graphic design course, right? And your communication should be tailored to those people. You have to understand that in marketing, you're not marketing for everybody. You're marketing with a specific audience in mind. And branding is a subsection of marketing. And in branding, you have what? Design, which is logo design, graphic design, flyer design, posters design. So as a graphic designer, you're also, in a way, a marketer. So the next question is, why is consistency critical in brand identity? Why is consistency critical in brand identity? Why is it important to be consistent in brand identity? Why is it important to be consistent in brand identity? No ideas? Consistency creates returning customer. If you're consistent, you're likely to be recommended. However, consistency has to do more with recognition. If you do things in a particular kind of way, like creating a pattern, people are most likely to recognize you from that, right? We said, like, yes, it enhances reputation, consistency. Take an example with the colors, right? Colors. Take an example of Orange, who they are. Orange telecommunication company Orange, who are always dressed in orange for recognition, right? And that recognition also builds trust, yes, and loyalty. Consistency sets business apart from other competitors. Yes, it also sets business apart from other competitors, right? Having a unique way which you do your things sets you apart from other competitors, Sets you apart, creates trust, enhances your reputation, and increases your brand loyalty. These are all correct. Next question, how does color and typography affect perception? Spoke about why color is important, but how does it affect perception? Consistency created an emotional connection. Is this related to question 3? This answer. Consistency created Okay, related to consistency. Yes, that is true. Now on question 3. How do color and typography affect perception? In another way, we are saying that how is color and typography important in branding? Basically, so that's what the question is asking you. How is color and typography important in branding? It sets the tone and reflects what the company is. Yes, it reflects what the company is all about. Let's take examples, maybe with the agricultural company of offering agricultural services, right? Maybe like to farmers. So having that, using earthly tones such as the grain, reflects the company being in relation to nature, vegetation, right? Gives people a particular perspective and personality of your brand. Yes, color gives personality, represents the identity. Yes, it represents the identity. It adds personality to your brand. Talk of luxury brands are using tiny fonts with very tiny width, so it adds personality. Those tiny fonts look more luxurious than heavy fonts, so it does in fact add personality to your brand. That is very correct. It presents the identity of your company. Exactly. So now what you should be thinking now is, as a designer, right? How can you start thinking as a brand strategist? Because the aim of this course, right? Aim of this course, of this training program, is not just for you to be able to use Photoshop and Illustrator to design flyers and logos and posters. That's not the aim. The aim is for you to the aim is for you to be able to design a brand, to build a brand with your designs. That is an aim. So you should be able to take in, let me say, a business or a company, right, and produce the entire brand scheme of this company, right? This is what this course is aimed at. That's why we're having this. That's why we're not just treating how you can add a circle or add an image in Photoshop or Illustrator, but also how you can combine these elements in order to communicate effectively with the audience. So for the practice activity for this lesson, we'll develop a mini brand identity for a fictional company. You remember 3 classes before, you're asked to design a logo, right? Then a logo, and the name of the business was Juju. You had to link it with any industry, so it could have been Juju restaurant, Juju uh, FX, Juju tech, Juju graphics. And in the previous class, the assignment was to use the logo which you had created to design a flyer in Photoshop. So for those 2 assignments, I've not yet seen submissions for the assignments. I'm still waiting for them. And now, for this assignment now, is to develop a mini brand identity for that fictional company which you created. That no matter what you are choosing, if it was a restaurant, if it was a forex company, if it was a tech company, graphics company, so your assignment now is to design a mini brand identity for this fictional company, right? So for example, if you are choosing Juju restaurant, for example, or maybe Juju skincare, so you have to now define the brand stone, the values, and the audience. Right. Okay, let me give a short example. let's say our company was Juju Tech, right? The brand stone, we'll go with a professional, motivational, inspirational tone. And the values of this company, of Juju Tech, would be to provide innovation, right? Innovation with community and innovation, right? Meaning to push the idea of building together, right? Building together and to empower, build together and to empower. So now means that what Juju Tech aims at empowering youth by providing them valuable skills and empowering businesses to the online space, right? Empowering businesses online space so that they can succeed. They can increase their revenue, increase their market, increase their audience. And our audience simply is uh, youths between the ages of 18 to, well, let me not say youth, let me say people between the age of 18 to 65. And those people are divided into two categories. They're divided into youths hoping to learn new skills, and those used to be like 18 to 25. And then adults, right? Adults are mostly business owners hoping to increase their their brand recognition, their brand name, have more customers, make more sales. So that's our audience. So business owners hoping to leverage more on their businesses and leverage more on the online space for their businesses, and maybe youths trying to learn more skills. That's our audience. So we're going to choose three colors and two typefaces for this. Typeface means the font, and you're going to choose three colors. So for example, on this Juju Tech, we have this seafoam blue and this turquoise with the yellow, which are our colors. And for the typefaces, we have the Mont Serrat font and the Butler font. So you should have already sketched those logo ideas from 2 classes ago. So normally now you're not supposed to be sketching those ideas again, but if you had not, then you sketch the logo ideas. And you're also going to describe how this logo and this flyer, which you're supposed to have done like the 2 classes before, how this logo and this flyer match the voice of the brand. So was it clear enough? Was it clear enough? Was it well explained enough? Okay. So when the call will end, I will send a new link in the group for us to join so we can continue. So you can also screenshot this, or if you want to screenshot the particular page, you could also tell me. So if you have any questions right now, you could ask before this call ends. Once it ends, as I said, I'm sending a new link to the group, so you join immediately so we continue. Because the class isn't over yet. Okay, so everything so far is understood. So we're going to dive immediately into an in-depth, 2 classes ago, Okay, I want to share my screen. Share my screen. Okay, are you seeing my screen now?